The man who orchestrated Tupac Shakur's murder just walked into police custody, calm, composed, and decades late. But this isn't the ending fans expected. For 27 years, the world asked, who killed Tupac? Now we finally have an answer, but it opens even darker questions. Dwayne Keefta Davis, a name once whispered in backroom conversations and unsolved case files, is now the face of the biggest arrest in hip-hop history. His confession cracked open a case sealed tight by gang loyalty, fear, and silence. But what drove him to speak now? Why did the system wait this long? And more importantly, what have they been hiding? This isn't just a story about a crime. It's about power, betrayal, silence, and a conspiracy that spanned decades. The streets knew, the industry knew, but no one said a word. As the headlines scream at justice at last, others ask, was this all a play? Is Keef D the mastermind or just the fall guy for something much bigger? What really happened that night in Las Vegas? Who wanted Tupac dead and who stood to gain the most? This is the untold truth behind Tupac's death and why it was never just a drive-by. The truth didn't come from police work or some last-minute witness. It came from the streets, and it came from a man named Dwayne Keefta Davis. For years, Davis was a known figure in South Central Los Angeles. Not just a dealer or gang member, he was royalty in the streets. As a high-ranking member of the Southside Compton Crips, he had a seat at the table where major decisions were made. He was also the uncle of Orlando Anderson, the man long rumored to be involved in Tupac's murder. But despite whispers, no one talked. Not in public, not to the police. That silence held strong for over 2 decades. But in 2018, the changed. Keef D, staring down a life sentence on federal drug charges, made a choice. He talked, and when he did, everything started to unravel. He confessed he was in the white Cadillac that pulled up beside Suge Knight's bar on September 7, 1996. The night Tupac was gunned down. He admitted to helping plan the hit. Sitting in the front passenger seat, Davis claimed the shots came from the back, but he knew what was coming. He didn't pull the trigger, but he orchestrated the scene. Why speak now? It wasn't guilt. It wasn't regret. It was leverage. The feds offered him a deal, cooperate and help close major cases in exchange for a reduced sentence. And Keef D knew he had one card no one else could play. Tupac. He didn't stop at one confession. He started popping up in interviews, documentaries, and podcasts, dropping pieces of the puzzle like breadcrumbs. He described the fight at the MGM Grand, the fallout, and the revenge plot. Every time he spoke, the story got clearer, and investigators listened closely. What stunned people wasn't just what he said, it was how casual he sounded. Like recounting a wild night, not a murder that shattered the hip-hop world. To some, it felt like bragging. To others, a calculated move. The most revealing moment came when he explained the motive. Retaliation. Tupac and his crew had jumped Orlando Anderson in a Vegas casino just hours before the shooting. The beating was public, humiliating. In gang culture, that can't go unanswered. According to Davis, that beating set everything in motion. Respect, that's what it came down to. In the Crips world, image is everything. Letting Tupac walk away from that fight without retaliation would make them look weak. So they struck back, and they struck fast. But even with this confession, Davis refused to name who actually fired the shots. There are still lines I won't cross, he said. But police already had their suspects. Anderson, who died in a shootout in 1998, and another Crip named DeAndre Smith. For the first time, police had someone alive, willing to talk, and with a front-row seat to hip-hop's most infamous murder. But was he telling the whole truth, or just enough to save himself? Las Vegas, September 7th, 1996. The city pulsed with energy. The Mike Tyson versus Bruce Seldon fight had packed the MGM Grand with celebrities, athletes, and music legends. Among them was Tupac Shakur, riding a wave of success, dressed in Versace, stacking chips at the casino tables, and glowing like the star he was. Beside him was Suge Knight, the imposing head of Death Row Records. Their relationship was layered: money, power, loyalty, but also tension. That night, they were moving as one unit, visible, loud, untouchable, but it all shifted in seconds. As Tupac and his entourage moved through the hotel lobby, they spotted someone, Orlando Anderson. He was a known member of the Southside Compton Crips, and more importantly, the guy who had allegedly tried to snatch a death row chain weeks earlier. Without hesitation, Tupac threw the first punch. His crew joined in. The beatdown was quick, brutal, and captured on security cameras. Anderson limped away, humiliated. But in gang culture, humiliation demands revenge. Later that night, Suge and Tupac were headed to Club 662, Suge's own venue, where Tupac was supposed to perform. They were in a black BMW. Tupac sat in the passenger seat. Music blasted. The windows were down. Everything felt normal, maybe even victorious. At 11:15 p.m., they stopped at a red light on Flamingo Road. A car full of women pulled up next to them. Tupac laughed, flirted, tossed a few words. Moments later, that car drove off. Then, like a ghost, a white Cadillac glided up beside them. Inside were 4 men. No words, no warnings, just gunfire. 14 shots rang out. The first few missed, but then the bullets found their mark. Tupac was hit 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, once in the thigh. Suge was grazed by shrapnel, but managed to drive off, making a frantic U-turn and racing toward University Medical Center. Inside the hospital, chaos erupted. Doctors rushed Tupac into emergency surgery. His lung was punctured. Blood filled his chest cavity. For a moment, it looked like he might pull through. Outside, fans gathered. Radio stations stopped music and gave live updates. The hip-hop world froze, holding its breath. But back at the scene, there were more questions than answers. So, witnesses disappeared. Conflicting statements swirled. Suge said he didn't see anything. Others said Tupac was trying to climb into the back seat when the shots started, and that white Cadillac? It vanished into the neon haze. Police hit roadblocks immediately. No one wanted to talk. The code of the streets kicked in. No snitching, no cooperation. For many, talking meant risking your life. And just like that, one of the most high-profile shootings in American music history was already on its way to becoming a cold case. Tupac clung to life for 6 more days. His body fought hard, but the damage was done. On September 13, 1996, he died from internal bleeding and respiratory failure. He was just 25 years old. What happened at that red light wasn't just a drive-by. It was a message, a power move. A brutal retaliation in a war most people didn't even realize was still raging. But the real question wasn't just who was in the car. It was, who sent them? In the hours after Tupac's murder, the questions multiplied faster than answers, and at the center of it all stood one name, Orlando Anderson. He was 22 years old, a member of the Southside Compton Crips, and had just been publicly humiliated by Tupac and his crew in the MGM Grand Lobby mere hours before the shooting. For many, the math was simple. Anderson got jumped, then Tupac got shot. Case closed, but nothing about this case was simple. Anderson denied involvement, and police couldn't make charges stick. He was never arrested, and just 2 years later, in 1998, Anderson was shot and killed in a gang-related shootout. Whatever secrets he carried, they died with him. Still, many believed he was just the trigger man, not the mastermind. That theory opened the door to a darker question. Who ordered the hit? Some pointed east, toward Bad Boy Records and Shauna Puff Daddy Combs. Tupac had publicly accused Combs and the notorious B.I.G. of setting him up in a 1994 shooting that nearly ended his life. The beef between East and West Coast rap had since escalated into something far more dangerous than diss tracks. Former LAPD detective Russell Poole believed Combs played a bigger role than anyone realized. Poole claimed to have uncovered links between Combs and known gang members, including alleged payments and promises tied to eliminating death row artists. According to these claims, Combs had supposedly offered a bounty for death row chains, essentially putting a price on their heads. Poole's theory suggested that the fight in the MGM Grand wasn't just spontaneous. It may have been a spark to ignite an already loaded plan. The chain-snatching incident, possibly a staged provocation. The retaliation, predictable. Combs has always denied any involvement. But the whispers never stopped. And then there was Suge Knight. To this day, Suge Knight claims to have loved Tupac like a brother. But behind the scenes, the relationship was strained. Suge owed Tupac millions in unpaid royalties. Tupac had talked about leaving death row to start his own label. That meant taking his fame, his catalog, and his influence with him. Suge was also in legal hot water. Death row was under federal investigation. His empire was cracking, and losing Tupac could have been the final blow. Knight was the one who insisted Tupac ride with him that night. He chose the route. And when the bullets flew, Knight walked away with a minor injury while Tupac took 4 to the chest. People took notice. When questioned, Knight gave vague answers, refused to cooperate with investigators, and lawyered up fast. For someone claiming to be a victim, his behavior raised eyebrows. So who did it? Was it Orlando Anderson acting out of gang revenge? Was it Combs manipulating things from the East Coast? Or was it Suge Knight ensuring he remained in control of the empire Tupac helped build? Each suspect had motive. Each stood to gain from Tupac's silence. But 27 years later, only one man, Keith D, would end up in handcuffs, and even he left trails of doubt. His confession was detailed but selective. He named the car, the motive, the plan, but never the shooter. It's easy to ask who pulled the trigger. It's harder to answer who made the call. And that's the question investigators still haven't fully solved. The shooting of Tupac Shakur happened on a crowded street in one of the most surveilled cities in America. There were witnesses, cameras, ballistics, a known motive. Yet somehow for 27 years, no one was convicted. How does that happen? From the very beginning, the investigation was marred by chaos and confusion. Witnesses changed their stories or vanished. Key evidence, like the murder weapon, was mysteriously misplaced by law enforcement. Some officers later admitted the scene wasn't properly secured. Others simply blamed a lack of cooperation. But for many, it wasn't incompetence, it was intentional. The Las Vegas Police Department at the time had limited resources for gang-related violence. Some officers reportedly viewed Tupac's murder as just another rapper getting shot. That attitude alone stalled the urgency of the investigation. Then there were the rumors of internal corruption. Detectives like Russell Poole suggested that some LAPD officers had ties to death row records and the Crips. If that's true, it meant people within the system may have been actively suppressing the case to protect their own. The more you dig, the murkier it gets. And the silence? Deafening. The no-snitching rule in gang culture meant even people who knew the truth were too afraid to speak. Talking could get you killed, so no one did. For years, every lead hit a wall. It wasn't until Keith D started talking decades later that the case had any movement. Two of its biggest stars, rivals and legends, lost to violence that blurred the lines between entertainment and real life. As years passed, Tupac became more than an artist. He became a symbol. His words were studied like scripture. His face immortalized on murals from Brooklyn to Johannesburg. His impact echoed through generations of rappers, activists, and poets. He spoke about police brutality before it was a hashtag. He talked about pain, poverty, hope, and fire, all with unapologetic truth. Tupac was more than music. He was movement. After nearly 3 decades, the arrest of Keith D felt like the closing chapter in a mystery that haunted music, justice, and memory. But was it closure, or just convenience? He confessed. Yes, he laid out the plan, the motive, the players, but he stopped short of naming the shooter. And with most of the key figures dead, prosecutors can't build the full picture. We have an ending, but not the truth in full. Tupac's murder was never just about gang violence. It was about power, about money, about silence. His death wasn't a tragedy that happened in the dark. It was carried out in front of flashing lights and still went unanswered. And yet, Tupac's voice never faded. His words still challenge, inspire, and echo in the fight for justice and truth. He spoke to the broken parts of people and gave them a reason to stand tall. The man is gone, but the message, it's immortal. So was justice served? Or did the system simply settle for the one man who wouldn't stop talking? One thing's for sure, Tupac's story still isn't finished. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that go deeper than the headlines. And check out the next video waiting for you on screen.